can shoot out for Barney.
Before the throne, before the ultimatum, before a single strike against the World Aquanaut Security Patrol, Titan was a sovereign with a legitimate grievance. By the time we're done here, you'll understand not just what Titan became, but why the series itself was structured to prevent you from fully understanding his side of the story. And you may find yourself genuinely unsure who the real villain of Stingray actually was. The show asked a question it refused to answer. That question is what we're here to look at today. If you're new here, welcome to the Vintage Vault. We don't do nostalgia tourism, we do forensic history. Hit subscribe and the notification bell, because this kind of deep dive into the shows you grew up with is what we do every single week. It starts here, not underwater, not in Titanica. It starts in a small studio in Slough, England in 1964, where a production team set out to make a children's adventure series and accidentally built one of the most morally complicated shows on British television.
Okay, phones, wake up, boy. Here we go again.
Number 1. The Human Before the Mask.
Close number 1 hatch.
Number 1 hatch.
Okay, release elevator.
In 1964, Britain had never seen anything quite like Stingray. And I mean that literally. Technically. The show was filmed entirely in color at a time when British television was still broadcasting in black and white. Every episode was shot in full vivid color, the electric blue of the ocean, the sleek silver hull of the submarine, the coral reds and deep greens of Titanica. None of it visible to a British audience watching at home. The UK wouldn't begin color broadcasts until 1967, 3 full years after Stingray premiered. So why film in color if your domestic audience couldn't see it? Because the show wasn't really made for Britain. It was made for the world. Gerry Anderson's Century 21 Productions understood something most British television of that era simply didn't. The future of the medium was international, and international audiences, particularly in the United States, were already watching in color. Stingray was designed to sell globally from day one, and it did. It went out to countries already broadcasting in color, and it looked extraordinary there. The whole thing was a calculated bet on where television was going, made at a moment when most British producers were still thinking domestically. The puppets in this show could blink. That sounds like a minor technical footnote. It really isn't. Tiny internal motors in the puppet heads drove the eyelids, a sophisticated and expensive achievement that was actually abandoned for every subsequent Gerry Anderson production, including Thunderbirds. Stingray is the only Supermarionation series where the characters blink, naturally and consistently throughout. The production team built something that genuinely made these figures feel alive, decided it cost too much to sustain, and walked away from it. There's something in that decision that runs through the whole show. Because Stingray is, at its core, a series about a world that has achieved extraordinary things, a submarine that can outrun anything in the ocean, a security force capable of defending the surface world, a hero in Captain Troy Tempest who is brave and skilled and practically without flaw. What little we know of his background is the background of a man who built himself from nothing. Troy Tempest was raised in an orphanage, no family name handed down, no inheritance of rank or privilege. Whatever he became, he made himself. And into this world of achieved wonders, of color no one in England could yet see, of technology too expensive to sustain, they introduced an antagonist named Titan. Titan, ruler of the underwater city of Titanica. Titan, lord of the Aquamphibians. Titan, the villain who issued ultimatums and commanded sea creatures, and threatened the surface world with annihilation. The show presented him as the enemy from the start. But here's what a careful viewer notices, even watching it as a child. Titan already had a civilization. He already had a world. Subjects, governance, territory, a throne room that suggested centuries of culture beneath the waves. Troy Tempest didn't discover the ocean, he arrived in it, armed, claiming jurisdiction. The question the show planted, and then critically refused to answer, is who was actually the intruder?
Is this some kind of gag, Commander?
I hope so. But right.
Number 2. The Wound.
Phones? Phones?
The World Aquanaut Security Patrol. The name alone tells you how the surface world thinks about the ocean. It's a resource to be secured, a domain to be patrolled. The organization's logo, PWOR, stands for Pacific World Oceanography Research, which frames the whole enterprise as scientific administration. Research, management, the bureaucratic language of a civilization that has simply decided the ocean belongs to it. Titan never agreed to any of this. And this is where the real wound lives. Not in a single dramatic scene, but in the accumulated weight of a premise the show never examined and never resolved. Here's what we actually know about Titan's position. He rules an underwater civilization. His people, the Aquamphibians, are indigenous to the deep. His conflict with Wasp is not presented as originating from any act of aggression on his part. It precedes the show's narrative entirely. By the time we meet him in Episode 1, the war is already underway. The surface world has already decided it has the right to operate in his territory. Marineville is already built. The jurisdiction has already been claimed, unilaterally, by men with better weapons. Titan is responding to something that happened before the cameras even rolled. And then there is Marina. Marina is the silent woman at the center of this story. She's mute, communicates only through sign language, and her silence is not incidental. She's an Aqua Marina from the underwater city of Pacifica, a person of the deep who has been brought to the surface world. She serves with WASP, co-pilot Stingray, loves Troy Tempest. She cannot speak. The show treats this as a character detail, a source of mystery and poignant longing. But look at it differently. Marina is a woman from a civilization beneath the waves who has crossed over to the surface world. And her voice, the voice of that world, is never heard. She communicates in gestures that surface world people have to interpret for her. Her perspective is always mediated, always translated, always filtered through someone else. Titan's wound is geopolitical. Marina's wound is something quieter and in some ways more devastating. She is the bridge between two worlds who cannot speak for either. This is what the show actually built. A villain who may have been defending his home. A silent woman who gave up her world for a man who belongs to the civilization that displaced her people. A hero who is brave and good and almost entirely unexamined. And a conflict that was declared settled before the first episode began, by people who never had to live underwater. The wound isn't in any single episode. It's in the architecture. And in the final episode, the one that was supposed to give all of this some resolution, the production team made a choice. They didn't answer any of it.
Who are you? What do you want with us?
Number 3. The choice. The 40th episode of Stingray is called Aquanaut of the Year. It is a clip show. Not a finale. Not a dramatic resolution. Not the confrontation between Troy and Titan that the series had been building toward. Not an answer to what Marina would ultimately choose, or what Titan would ultimately do, or whether the surface world's claim on the ocean would ever be challenged, or justified, or even questioned out loud. Just existing footage, repurposed, familiar scenes assembled into a retrospective. Now, let's be precise about what we actually know here, because it matters. There is no documented suppressed finale. No confirmed alternative ending was filmed and then locked away. No executive order came down from a network to cut a more controversial resolution. The research found no verified evidence of banned footage, no confirmed scripts for a different version of the ending, no paper trail of a lost episode sitting in a vault. If you've heard that version of this story, the one with a dramatic secret reel someone deliberately buried, that's fan mythology, and it's not what we're dealing with. The truth is more mundane, and in some ways more revealing than a conspiracy. What is fully documented is that the choice was made, deliberately, consciously, with full knowledge of what it meant. By the time Aquanaut of the Year aired, Gerry Anderson had already moved on. Thunderbirds was in production. The puppets that had pioneered blinking eyelids, too expensive to maintain, had been replaced by a newer generation without that capability. The color technology that made Stingray a world first was now standard for the production company. The lessons of the show had been absorbed, and the show itself had been superseded. This was simply the economic logic of television production in the 1960s. Shows ended, teams moved forward, you made what you were commissioned to make, and then you made the next thing. There was no tradition of the narrative finale, no audience expectation that a series owed them resolution. A clip show was a standard, accepted format for a final episode, and nobody in that production office thought they were committing any kind of creative sin. But here's where the choice gets genuinely interesting. Because Stingray wasn't just any show. It had, whether intentionally or not, constructed a moral architecture that needed answering. Titan's grievance was real within the show's own logic. Marina's silence carried genuine weight. Troy's unexamined heroism worked precisely because the show never examined it. And the moment you start examining it, questions surface that the format was never designed to address. The clip show didn't just leave the story unfinished. It preserved the questions in amber. Titan never lost. He never won. He never had to account for his methods or articulate his principles. Wasp never had to justify its jurisdiction. Marina never got to speak. The conflict was frozen at its moment of maximum moral complexity. And then the credits rolled. That is the ending they gave you. Not what was filmed and hidden, but what was built and then left standing with no roof on it. Number 4. The price. What did it cost? Not the production, and not the careers. This show launched Thunderbirds, which launched Captain Scarlet, which cemented Gerry Anderson's legacy. By any commercial measure, Stingray was a success that generated further successes. The price wasn't paid in the industry. It was paid by the story itself. Titan never got his hearing. The case for Titan as a sympathetic figure, as a sovereign defending his civilization against unilateral encroachment from a surface world that simply decided it owned the ocean, is a case the show's own internal logic supports. His attacks on Wasp are framed as aggression, but they occur in his territory. His commands are framed as tyranny, but he commands his own people. His refusal to accept the surface world's authority is framed as villainy, but that authority was never consented to in the first place. The clip show finale didn't just deny Titan a conclusion. It denied him the possibility of ever making his case at all. And Marina. She gave up her world. She crossed from the deep to the surface and flew alongside the man who represents the civilization that claimed jurisdiction over the ocean she came from. She learned to communicate in a language of gestures because the world she chose to live in couldn't hear her actual voice. And at the end of 40 episodes, she got a clip show. No resolution of the love triangle, no answer to whether she'd stay or return. No moment where her perspective, the perspective of someone who'd lived on both sides of this conflict, was given any real weight. The thing Titan was trying to protect, his civilization, his sovereignty, his people's right to the deep, Marina had partially surrendered. And the thing she surrendered it for, a life on the surface, recognition, belonging, perhaps love, was never actually granted to her either. That is the price of an unfinished story. Not what was filmed and hidden, what was built and then abandoned. The people who would have paid for resolution, Titan, Marina, every viewer who watched 40 episodes and genuinely invested in the question of who was right. They paid it so the production team could move forward. The ocean kept its secrets because nobody stayed long enough to ask.
Teufel still looks upon you.
Number 5. The verdict. Here's the evidence. Make of it what you will. The case for Titan as villain. He deploys military force against surface world operations, uses the aquamphibians as weapons, and does not seek negotiation. He issues ultimatums and executes attacks. His methods are lethal. His governance within Titanica doesn't appear to be accountable to anyone but himself. He's not a victim of circumstance making difficult choices under pressure. He is a ruler who has chosen war as his primary instrument. And whatever the legitimacy of his underlying grievance, the consequences of his actions are real, and they are deadly. The case for Titan as victim. He was there first. The ocean was not unclaimed territory when Wasp arrived. It was his territory. The World Aquanaut Security Patrol operates under the authority of the surface world's governing structures, but those structures never sought Titan's consent. PWOR frames its mission as scientific and security-oriented, but the security it provides is exclusively for the surface world. Titan's aggression occurs, consistently, in response to Wasp's operations in the deep. He is not attacking surface cities. He is fighting in his own water. And then there's the question the show never answered. If Titan is a villain, what does that make the organization that simply declared itself the authority over his world? If Titan is a victim, what does that make Troy Tempest, the brave, self-made orphan who does what he's ordered to do, protects the people he's supposed to protect, and never once asks whether his mission was legitimate in the first place? Stingray was the first British television series ever filmed entirely in color. Color its domestic audience couldn't even see. It pioneered a technology in its puppets that it immediately abandoned as too expensive. It built a moral architecture it refused to fully inhabit. In every sense, it was a production that kept pointing at something it couldn't quite bring itself to show. And the ending. 40 episodes, a clip show, roll credits, move on to Thunderbirds, is either the honest admission that television in 1964 simply wasn't built for these questions, or it's the most convenient possible way to leave a sovereign's legitimate grievance permanently unaddressed. The ocean floor is still down there. Titanica is still waiting. And 60 years later, the question the show planted and never answered is the same one it's always been. Was Troy Tempest defending the world, or was he the reason it needed defending? A production that saw the future clearly enough to film in color when no one in Britain could see color, and then handed its audience a clip show when the questions got hard. Stingray built a villain with a genuine case. It built a silent woman who had surrendered everything. It built a hero who never had to examine his mandate. And then it stopped. What that cost, not the production, not the business, but the 60 years of audiences who watched Titan lose without ever getting to hear his argument. You can feel it every time you sit with that final episode and realize nothing was resolved. They kept this from you. Not in a vault, not in a burned reel. In the choice to stop before the real story began. Whether that was the right call, that's yours to decide.